There we go. Okay, so this meeting is being recorded, and there were no objections to the recording of this meeting or distribution of the meeting. Okay, so we already had the introductions, and we talked about the letter of intent for further technical assistance regarding regional policing. I will turn it over then to Chief Stephan to begin the meeting and to work off of his agenda that he prepared for the meeting.
Thank you. And thanks for not making me go through that biography thing. Every time that happens, I feel like it's a eulogy, and I'm getting old enough. I don't really want to hear all that again. So thank you for engaging in this process. I can assure you it's a difficult process, and we can simplify it, but it's going to take a lot of commitment from everybody to get through this and get through it unscathed. And that's the idea here. Our job isn't to make it an excruciating experience. It's painful enough to begin with as far as all the information we need and looking at different things. So as was discussed, I understand regional policing. I've been involved in it for a long, long time, and I had the pleasure of starting a brand new regional police department from the ground up. So within the past 12 years, I've been through this process, and I can give you some of the things that we did to make it work. We had 4 municipalities, around 45,000 population. And the fact is, there's a lot of different things you can do to make the process go quicker. But the thing we want to make certain of is that every step of the way, we build upon a solid foundation of information. And one of the first things I look at when I do a study or review a study is the fiscal situation. Where are you fiscally now? Where are you in your fiscal journey? And where do you want to be in the future? And try to understand what those expectations are. And the same thing as an organizational perspective. So I want to hear from you what your perception is right now. Where do you feel that you are in those in the meetings? But before I do that, at the past meetings, did you record it or take notes or anything like that? Is there an agenda or meeting minutes or anything?
We've only held one meeting so far. That meeting was very introductory. We were kind of just spitballing stuff for the most part. We did record that one. The recording is available. We can provide a link. We have it on our YouTube, actually.
Okay.
So we can provide you that link to get you caught up on some of our discussions there. But in terms of this meeting, if we could address this, I think Spencer and I are kind of trying to understand where this meeting sits in terms of being a public meeting. Does it need to have the legal advertisement attached to it? It doesn't technically have quorums. My solicitor thinks a little bit that since this is a recommendation body, he believes we might have to advertise it. No matter, and we first and foremost, I want to see what legally we must do. I think when we spoke last time, we did have consensus. We don't want to do anything behind closed doors, certainly. So ideally having it recorded and then posted, and we would probably advertise locally that we're having this. So we do have members of the public potentially.
Right. But then a concern was obviously was brought up because, depending on what the contents of the meeting are, we don't necessarily want to publicize like the schedules for our police departments, right? We don't want to because essentially if we're discussing, when police are patrolling or, how many are on duty, we'd probably rather not advertise that. So we're just not really sure where this stands with regard to a meeting, what our requirements are. I mean, and if you have any insight into that, that'd be helpful.
Okay, so from that perspective, I'll be cautious in what I ask you guys. And the first thing I would ask is just for rules of order, if there was no minutes or an old business type of thing to approve, or we can dispense with that section and section 3 on the agenda and move on to subsection A, which talks about the prior meeting. So my understanding is it was recorded. There was no written minutes. So we can dispense with that and move now into the review of this and discussion of where you were at. So if I could get an idea what you think, where you are in the process, have you adopted a intergovernmental cooperation agreement yet?
No,
Okay.
I don't believe so.
And have this steering committee, what do you feel that your purpose is with this steering committee? What's your goal with the steering committee?
To explore. Yeah, to explore, and I mean, obviously the framework of the study existed, but now I think both municipalities are interested in if we would move forward, what would a regionalized department look like? And then therefore we can kind of work backwards and say, is this something that communities want?
Okay. And I'm glad you answered it that way, because I think what's important here now is you guys had the exploratory committee, you got the report, and now you're at the next stage. So let's call that the steering committee, where you guys decide what the next step's going to be that you're willing to take and you want to take, or you think is most appropriate for your community. So you're still exploring a lot of information in that. That doesn't mean that you're not going to do your due diligence or to make good decisions on behalf of your community. But we want to make certain that you ask us questions that give you that information that you need. And I'm going to try to ask you guys some questions tonight to see if you feel that you have the right information at a confidence level in that information. So let's go around. Do you feel like has everybody read the report that came out from Chief Kirshner?
Yes.
Yes. I have it. Yep.
Okay.
Yes, we all have
Okay.
copies.
Do you understand the report? And listen, if you don't, there's no shame in saying, hey, I don't understand portions of this, because I'll be honest with you. I want people to say, hey, look, I get it or I don't, because now's the time to ask those questions. Is there parts of this report that you need to have clarified?
I'm good.
Oh,
Yeah, all right. No, doesn't seem like there's any questions in the room.
Yeah,
at
not at
least
this moment.
right now. no.
yeah.
At the moment, yeah.
Okay. Now we're going to ask the really tough question here. The data that's in the report, do you have confidence in the data as presented? Does that reflect reality?
I would say that, there are some concerns that have been expressed. I don't know that I can't put my finger on exactly what those concerns are per se, but I think really the hot button issue, without trying to get too into the weeds right now, is that I think most folks are concerned about cost. What is the budget? What's the real operational cost? What's the operational cost for each one of our departments? And then what would the operational cost be for the hypothetical, joint department? That's, it's not to say that there isn't confidence so much as a lack of clarification. We were not, I think that a lot of folks are not 100% sure on where the budgetary figures in the initial study, how they were generated and what they were based on. That's something that has been brought up to me.
Yeah, I think from Wesleyville side, in terms of the finances, the numbers we provided about our department and the finances of the department, we're fairly confident in those. I think obviously there's been a lot of turnover in Lawrence Park, so some of that needs to be re-verified. I'm not really that confident in the budget that was laid out, the proposed budget of the regional department. I think that it left a lot to be desired maybe and more built out, so.
Well, I'm kind of glad to hear you guys say all that for a variety of reasons. I think what we need to really do is to make certain that we have a good baseline on what those costs are that you have, especially the police expenditures. So we have a good line on that. Now, it's my understanding that some years you included the MMO in the police budget, and some years you did not. Is that correct?
Yeah, at least from Lawrence Park, yeah. Lawrence Park, some years we included several different things in the budget, generally with regard to sort of, I don't know how you want to say it. The MMO is one part of it, but other employer paid benefits, essentially. Some years they were included in the budget. Some years, the study, they were not included in the budget. And so, that's part of one part of the discrepancies is we're just not sure what all had been included in the data that was submitted.
And when we discuss this, I want everybody in the room to know that what we're talking about here does not mean that there was, it doesn't mean that there was wrongdoing or to imply there was wrongdoing. It's just a way that we want to make certain that we're looking at all of the costs associated with the police expenditures and doing it consistently the same way over time in order to have a good analysis of what that budget looks like over time. And typically what I like to do is look at a 5-year period. And since we're coming out of the 5-year period with COVID, that kind of changes a lot of ways that we approach things because of the way that EIT, the earned income tax, and some of those other things were affected by the pandemic. So we also had the ARPA monies and the distribution of that affected some of those spending things. So I wanted to make sure that what we're looking at is an accurate representation of what that police expenditures look like over time. So does anybody have any concerns or questions on that? Okay.
What would be the easiest way to fix the budget? I mean, if we have concerns like the two managers have concerns, and I was part of this 20 years ago, and that was the one thing that ended the whole discussion back then was the financial part of it. So I think, if first thing, and I said that at the last meeting, is we have to get the financial done first before we move forward, because if we can't financially afford it between the two municipalities, there's no reason to keep going forward. So I think we have to get the financial end done first.
And I'm going to give you a straightforward answer on that. You look at the police budget for the new RPD, the proposed RPD, the regional PD. But what you have to do is you have to factor in a lot of the things that are still kind of unknowns as far as some of the obligations with pension and stuff like that. What potential costs you might incur as far as what we'll call startup costs, costs associated with certain actuary studies or any legal things or something like fees associated with that. But over time, you can project cost containment and cost stabilization. So is your goal right now to see an immediate reduction, or is your goal to see cost containment over time and reduction and a trending that's rather a smoothing effect to your budgetary expenditures from policing as opposed to a trending upward? Because the way it looks now, I think I didn't do a graph on it yet, but I suspect you're trending upward.
Yeah, and I'm not saying I'm not for it. I'm totally for it. But I think we need to get those figures first before we can move forward. That's just my opinion.
I don't believe our projected numbers that were given are accurate representation of what our costs are associated with Lawrence Park Police. I think they're rather inflated and they're not accurate.
Okay, I'm sorry. I just got part of it. What part was inflated?
I don't think the numbers that were given to the study were accurate. I think they're rather inflated and not an accurate representation of our budget. So I think the numbers are kind of incorrect at this point.
Okay. Well, I would make this suggestion, and I'm not running the show here. You guys are. You're the municipal body. But I think what we need to do is regroup a little bit here, get those numbers pretty much solidified to where we have a real high confidence level in it. Because if we're expressing doubts in some of those numbers, I think it's a bad way to continue. And we don't want to necessarily have reliance on bad information. And I think that what you guys have, from what I'm seeing here, was I've dealt with Spencer and Marcus, on some phone calls and stuff, and looked at some of the information I got. I have a pretty good. I have confidence that they'll be able to figure it out. They're two good managers, and I think they'll be able to work through this and get, at least so we all are on the same piece of sheet of music, so to speak, and have a sound foundation for that. So if we address those concerns, I think that would be something we should do now, just from a due diligence perspective, if nothing else. But
If I can say something in reference to that, or sorry, not to interrupt you, if you were going to say something else.
yeah, go ahead.
I think it's important to distinguish. I guess there's two, when we're talking about numbers, I think there's two different things we need to be thinking about. For one, there's the numbers in, and then there's the numbers out. So the numbers in is what we're saying we're not 1,000% confident in. And those were the financial surveys of what the municipalities are currently spending on their police. So I think certainly Spencer and I can work on getting those numbers.
So
more
for clarification,
solidified.
For clarification from my perspective, Spencer, you're referring to the surveys that were submitted to DCED?
Yeah. So,
That's Marcus.
I'm sorry, Marcus.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
So there's the numbers in would be the numbers submitted to DCED, and I think certainly Spencer and I should probably take a relook at that and make sure those are 100% accurate, as you said, to make sure that we have a good foundation. In terms of the numbers out, I think that's what our mayor was referring to with the budget of, we would need to build out a budget of this regional department first before we would start really planning it any further. I think, yeah. So there's two different things to consider. There's the numbers in, and we can certainly take a relook at that. But then I think our mayor was referring to the numbers on the end and kind of thinking that we should focus on the budget first and almost before anything else. So.
We need accurate numbers in to do the accurate numbers out, though. That's
Right.
the problem.
And and just to speak to your question a little bit about, immediate cost reduction versus cost stabilization. I think that, once we have a little more confidence in our input, I think we'd want to know if either is really possible. I think that long term is probably more important than in the immediacy, right? I think that we, generally speaking, I think that everybody kind of understands that in a transition period, things normally don't suddenly cost less money. I think that potential for cost stabilization is probably what is more attractive about the proposal, is like, maybe long-term this saves money. And that's the stuff that I legitimately don't know. I don't know how that's calculated or factored. And kind of like we were saying, it seems to me like the first step is making sure that, everybody in the room feels good about the data that we're using from inception. Does that make sense?
Well, it does to me, and I'm glad to hear it, because if there's discrepancies or feelings that there's poor data, and then we don't stop when we think that happens, we're going to be asked questions. If you knew, why didn't you change your mind here? Why didn't you stop, get the right data, and then make the recommendations based upon what we're seeing now? So, and besides that, this report was issued back in March, and I don't think anybody expected their healthcare insurance to be shooting up like it is on their budgetary line items either. So that's going to skew some of this, as you know. And if we know it now, let's not pretend we don't know it's going to happen, and we can start to prepare for those things. And so I don't think that it has to end the meeting. I think we should still continue with understanding now. That's one area that we have to clean up. Everybody's in total agreement to that? Okay,
Yeah.
Chiefs, I'm going to ask you, the numbers that you have for your incident numbers, are those pretty good numbers? Or do we need to take another look at some of that?
I mean, they're pretty close.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay. Do you guys count traffic stops as an incident?
yes,
Okay.
we do.
And could you tell me, can you separate the traffic stops from the other requests for assistance or incident calls or complaints?
I'd have to look. We had a new RMS system. I don't know if they could break it down that like that, but I can take a look and see.
Okay, you guys are using the, wait a minute, I just did a project in Erie County. What's the system you're using? You're using the LERMs?
Well, Lawrence Park's using Cody and Wesleyville's using Metro Alert.
Oh, okay. Okay. Okay, so the agency I had, we had Metro Alert, and then we moved to Cody, and we didn't, we ran a legacy system. We didn't expend the funds to do the transition of the data, transfer of data. So, okay, that gives me a good idea. And you can kick out the numbers. Cody, does it download the information straight from your RMS into Cody?
Yes.
Does it? Okay.
Yes, it does. So pretty
Okay.
much anything that they draw a number for creates an incident.
Okay, so we're good here. I have a pretty good knowledge of both of those systems, so we can talk at another time on that and gather that data. So, for everybody else that's present, do you have any questions about the study now, other than the ones we just discussed?
As far as the commission, does that vary throughout different minutes when you set up different regionalizations? Is the commission that's set up differently, or is all the commissions pretty much the same?
That's a very good question, and I'm going to give it to you like this. Some regional police departments have the commission members only being elected officials. So if you have 2 municipalities, you would want elected officials from each municipality, but then you also, it depends what you want to do, and that's set up in your intergovernmental cooperation agreement. And they will have that, so some municipalities have elected officials and an appointed citizen at large on the commission as well. Now, I would suggest this. Your commission is going to be sized appropriately, and you don't want to put too many people from each municipality on that commission, because then you run into quorum problems and other issues related to your home rule municipality, so to speak. So that's something you'd have to discuss somewhere downstream, but that's a thing you want to start to think about. So each of the boroughs, you have 5 members on your ruling bodies, correct? Plus the mayor?
We have 7 plus the mayor, and then they have the township.
We're a township, so we just have 5.
Okay. Okay. Well, and you want to try to keep it, you want to keep it so that and it's just a consideration for moving ahead, so you don't have stalemates based on coalition building and things like that. But that's downstream. But that's a good question to think about for the structure of your commission and how many people you want to have on it.
And I also
Did
was
I answer your
reading
question? Did I
Yes,
answer your
you did.
question?
Yes, you did, but
And
also I
that
was reading
portion is decided in the intergovernmental cooperation agreement, which is something you have input into as a ruling body. You can say to your legal professional that's working on that, hey, we want this to look like this, and then discuss it, and they'll give you guidance on that that's appropriate.
And as far as civil service, is civil service actually dissolved that through the regional police department?
Well, now that's an area that's interesting because of the fact that the regional police departments are founded under a different section of the statute. They're considered a quasi-governmental agency, and therefore they're governed by a different set of rules. Now, you can adopt a civil service structure if you want to, but as a regional police department, we have the ability to act under rules under Act 600 and Act 111. So it allows us to have a testing process and to hire. It makes us more nimble in a hiring process, so we can do it faster and more efficiently than some of the municipalities. And I'm going to just address boroughs because I understand how that works with civil service and the issues related to hiring officers, especially now when police officers are in pretty high demand as far as hiring. There's a shortage. So I was on a committee actually that looked at that very issue, and the rules concerning the boroughs were basically founded in like 1933, and they haven't changed a whole lot because it's so complicated. So it's like, as I was told, peeling back an onion, and it's too complicated. They didn't want to mess with it legislatively. So the short answer to your question is you don't have to be involved in the civil service if you don't want to. You can opt out of it. And I just researched that anyway under a second-class city situation.
Then how would it work as far as, I'm not saying, I'm just being plain devil's advocate, under discipline? Now, you have certain rules under the civil service that you have to follow.
Right.
So
right.
Yeah.
And man, you must have read a regional police manual because you're asking all the right questions here. I got to give you that. So here's the answer to that one. The regional police commission set up, and they would be the first finders. Let's suppose somebody gets a discipline infraction. Let's call it a suspension, a 2-day suspension. That's just a good example. If you're using constructive positive discipline, that's not the first step on the discipline train. But anyway, that's the first one that would be adjudicated by the commission. So the police chief would have a process in place with their policies and written directives that provides for that discipline and the investigation of a citizen complaint, the adjudication of the citizen complaint. So the citizen, suppose a complaint, it comes through and it's an unfounded complaint. The citizen should get a letter saying, thank you for your concerns. We've investigated this. We've used our information, and we've determined it not to be a violation of our policy, procedures, or rules, and it's not a founded complaint. So then, if you have a discipline action, it goes to the officer through the due process pieces, all the Weingarten, the Garrity, and all the other things that you may or may not have, and it goes through that piece until it gets to the commission. Then the commission is the hearing body on the disciplinary infraction, and it would be presented to them by the police department governing or staff, supervisory staff, or the chief. And then you would make a determination based upon that as to whether you're going to sustain the complaint or whether you're not. Now, the officer also has the due process of capabilities of having his side being heard, and that would be heard at that level. And typically that's the process. And if it's not to the officer's acceptance, let's say it that way, nobody's ever really satisfied with their discipline, but sometimes you can take it, sometimes you can't. If they're not going to accept that level of discipline, then it goes to an arbitration hearing, and it's heard by an independent outside third party, a grievance type thing. So it's a little quicker, a little cleaner than a civil service thing, but the fact of the matter is that's how it's typically handled in a regional police department. Now, once again, as I said earlier, should you decide to adopt a civil service structure, then you're in the same situation you are now. And your legal people can explain that and how that process goes in your charter design or your intergovernmental agreement design.
I had a quick question too.
Sure.
If I may. I think in addition to the budgetary numbers, we have to be confident about, how accurate those are. I also was looking over, and I guess the two chiefs could comment more on this, about the manpower needs. I want to make sure everybody was comfortable with the numbers quoted in here. And I guess, the study used, standard calculations from the IACP about, an average stop is so many minutes.
Yep.
And, the buffer factors and how to do the math on determining, make sure you had enough of a crew. So I think that's important too, that, we're all comfortable with those numbers. Because we might have good budgetary numbers, but then find out we're, understaffed or something too. So I'm just throwing that out there because I'm not real familiar with the IACP. But I think that'd be something we'd want to take a good look at too.
I can address that from both chiefs. So we're satisfied with 16, and we were both with the 2 school resource officers. So I think we're both content and satisfied with 16, including the 2 school resource officers in that.
And to that, thank you, Chief, and thank you for the question. And to that point, I already looked at some of the stuff that I saw within the study that I want to try to get consensus on here. So at one point in the study, I saw a total population of 6,510. I'm going to use the 7,000 number, 3,800 for Lawrence Park and 3,200 for Wesleyville. Everybody confident with that? Are we okay with that number?
Yep.
Okay.
And that was pulled from the 2023 census update, I believe, right?
Yeah, I don't know exactly where the 6510 came from, but it was using some of the calculations. The difference of 500 isn't really going to skew it that much, but I just wanted to make sure that when I do my calculations, everybody's good with those baseline numbers.
Yep.
The other piece I wanted to get across here was when they go into these studies, one of the things that you want to maintain, no matter how you cut it, for regional police distribution of resources. Now, you guys are going to be in an area that's about 2.3 square miles. So you're going to always really be pretty close to a bathroom or some kind of place, for the police officers to eat lunch or do something. But I also want to make certain that in order to have that anchor to the community, that we consider having a substation somewhere. So there's always a facility that's representative of the police department within the community. So my understanding was you're thinking that the police station will be in Lawrence Park Township. Is that correct? Or haven't we gotten to that?
Yep. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So if that's the case, I would strongly recommend having a substation placed in Wesleyville. Is there anybody that has any objections to that?
Nope.
Okay. All right. I'm not seeing any around there. So we're all good with that one?
Yep.
Okay. So let me just explain a little bit about that too. It's going to be a facility that's not going to be manned by an officer all the time. It's going to be a facility that's going to have a sign in front of it that's going to say basically, this community is a member of and served by the Erie County Regional Police Department. If you need police services, call this number. And the number is usually 911 or something similar. So that should suffice to let them know that there's an officer on duty, but they're not sitting in the office waiting for somebody to knock on the door. So that's typically how those situations are handled, and it gives the citizens some attachment to the police department as well. The other thing I heard about was the SROs. That's pretty well anchored in the community. And the only thing I would ask on that is that we got some sort of an understanding of how they're funded and what their level of funding they're getting from the school district for the SROs. And that's something you guys can figure out. But I'm going to tell you that the way the statute reads, lots of school districts are moving towards what's called a school security officer. And it's not the school, it's not an SRO. It's just a full-time member of a police department that the school district operates as a school security officer. And those are in place throughout Erie County. I know that the school district that does the Union City area has one. And that's something that's taking off across the Commonwealth and in Erie County as well. So just wanted to throw that out there. And those funding levels that the school district gets are statutorily established so that those budgets can't be cut under Act 45 unless it's specifically approved by the legislature. So think about those things. K-9 program, I understand that's a must-have, and it's just a stable concept within the community. Is that the case?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And I'm only asking these things because sometimes there's areas that we can look at to have economies identified. And I want to ask those things from your people before you get too far into this. Shift duration, 8 hours, both agencies, 8-hour shifts.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. All right. I looked at your pensions. Lawrence Park, you guys had a study that was the last pension study was in 2020 or 19 data. So probably was published in 2020. So you should be coming up. If you haven't had it, you will be having it soon with the pension audit from the Office of the Auditor General.
We had it this year. The Auditor General completed the audit, but she told me that we won't actually get the finished report possibly till like January.
Yeah, that's right. Did she indicate what your funding level appeared to be?
I believe we're fully funded, but it's in Lawrence Park, but I don't have her data with me. So
Yeah, no, I get it. It says here you're declining from 110.6 to 98.1 from 2015 to 2019. So during that period, did you have guys retire and start drawing from the pension? Is that what happened there?
Yes.
I'm
Yes,
sorry, I couldn't. Yes?
yes,
Okay. I couldn't hear you. Thanks.
okay.
I figured that's kind of what happened. So
Spencer, what's
That's,
your last,
that 98.1, that the people across the Commonwealth would die to have that. So don't worry, you're still looking okay there. And Wesleyville, you guys are down. Your 2017 data, and yours came out, I think, 2019. So you're non-distressed.
does it show you, we went through a pension audit in, I'm gonna say 24. It should be in there from the Auditor General.
Yeah.
Because it was a 2019 through 24, and then I know that went well. But our valuation this year in 2025 is showing us at 98% funded. It's about 98.1 or something.
Okay. Well, from a pension standpoint, as you know, you guys are still in a sweet spot to get your funding and your state aid. So you're good. So I'll look to see if the one I'm looking at is definitely a 2021 plan because I referenced it on my chart. So I'll pull that up. Thank you. I'll look for that. I know you guys have contracts coming up, so I would suggest this: look over those contracts and get yourselves in a position. So if you are thinking about the merger, that everybody's getting close to starting off on an equal footing somewhere downstream here. So you still have time for that. Now, the big question here is, what's your expectation and as far as a timeline for establishment of this new agency?
I mean, I think to frame it first, ideally it would be a January 1st. We would want to do it on.
January.
January 1st.
Yeah.
It would be a calendar year. So it's not gonna be 26. The soonest it could be would be January 1st, 27. If that's a realistic timeline, but we'll see that as we start to build it out more, I presume.
Well, I'm glad to hear you guys say all these things because it sure does take a load off my mind because I'm going to tell you, your expectations are both reasonable and accurate. And what I'm going to suggest to you is you're probably going to be somewhat surprised if once we get this financial piece hammered out, that you can't get it done by probably October 2026. And hopefully you'll be ready to go by Thanksgiving or whatever. But there's things that can happen. Like you don't necessarily have to wait until the first of the year to do it. You could have presumptive levels reached and be operational later than you're organized. So you get organized, you have everything ready, set, and then we hit the go button. But that's the way you got to do it because you have to establish the regional entity in order to get some of the things, the tax numbers. You have to do all the personnel things. You have to do everything with migrating numbers with the Department of Justice and Pennsylvania State Police and the MDJs. So those things do take some time. But I think once we get over these initial bumps or questions, we can get it worked out. Around the table, anybody have any other questions or concerns or comments?
Like I say, I think if everybody brings forth their biggest concerns off right now, and we get those like I'm all for it. My biggest concern is the money. If we can afford it, let's go for it. That I'm being upfront with everybody. So I hopefully everybody's upfront with all their concerns right now, and we get them on the table. So that way, come January of 27, somebody throws something out there we never discussed, and that's what throws a zinger into it, and we wasted a year talking about it. And then somebody says, well, I don't want to do it, but we never, if you talk about it now, we get it on the table right now, let's talk about it and maybe try to get it resolved. But like I say, my only concern right now is the financial end of it. We can get that straightened out, I'm all for it, so. And I'm being upfront with everybody.
With concerns to the budget and everything, is there grants available to help us start to get this implemented so we can, possibly not have to hit up the two communities for tax increases? If that were, I don't see much of a change in that, but are there grants available?
I can answer that. There may be, and I don't mean to be giving you a mitigated answer here, but the way the grant funding has changed over time here, after the ARPA funds dried up and all this stuff post-COVID, a lot of those grants have gone away. So there should be some grant announcements come out. I'm thinking January or probably now with the budget impasse, maybe even as early as or late as March. But there should be another round of grant things open up. So potentially, that would help you guys in that you would have some of these organizational things aligned so that you could actually apply for their grant. And you'll have people from DCED that are going to be assigned to say, hey, listen, here's our opportunities, but I would be doing you a disservice, and I don't want to do that. I don't want to promise something that we don't have, because right now there's a lot of uncertainties with grants.
I will add to that, through the Governor's Center for Local Government Services, we do have the Municipal Assistance Program. It is a competitive application, but money is there to help regional police departments with some of these startup operational costs. Again, I can send you the guidelines and I can go over more of that in detail and how that works. There's two application review periods. One is going to be here in October, and like Chief Stefan said, the other will be in April. Our year is fiscal, so it goes July to June. So we do some applications that we fund in the first half of our year. And then, of course, in the second half, we want to get the rest of the money out of the door. But again, with the budget impasse, until we get that money to know how much we're getting and then how much we can, what applications have already come in. But there's no time that you have to apply. So you can apply anytime throughout the year. You may not get it the first round or the second round. It might not be until the following year, but let me know and I will certainly, help see that through and advocate on your behalf to get funding for a regional police department. PCCD also has regional funding, and your local shares account has funding for regional police departments.
Let me ask you one thing. In terms of the map, I've heard that is a great program. But when I've actually spoken to people from the state, specifically our local government person about putting in for that, they were saying, well, you're actually in the STAMP program. STAMP is more preferential. Now the STAMP program, we're both in that program, both Lawrence Park and Wesleyville. Would STAMP do something like this, or technically no, because it's its own entity once, like the regional department, or how does that work?
So your STAMP phase one, you've had your report done, your financial report completed.
It says so both reports have been now completed. The
Okay.
phase one. I know ours, and I believe yours does say it's a very broad look to regionalize services with neighbors.
Yeah, there is a line item like that. It doesn't specify what services or anything, but there is something that
It
says.
might state regional police in it.
Yeah.
Do you recall it saying regional police at all?
So,
But it
whatever
might just have a catch-all
recommendations-
regionalized services.
Yeah, whatever recommendations are in your STAMP report is what you can come back to the center and apply for additional grant funding for phase two, phase three, however many phases, as long as you're requesting funding of what was recommended in that STAMP. So if there were specific recommendations about regionalizing, or once you regionalize, this should occur or have, then you can keep coming back for that. So I would encourage you, yes, to do that. But the MAP application is separate and is another avenue that you would be able to apply for funding for regional policing.
Okay. One question that I have, I guess I like to think in terms of kind of like deliverables that we could be working towards. Obviously, we've spoken now and we've mentioned about one deliverable will be the ultimate, what does a regional budget look like? But what are some other deliverables that we need to get? I mean, one milestone or deliverable will be an executed intergovernmental agreement for the creation of the commission, But aside from that, I mean, is it regional schedule? Is it, like station arrangement? Like, what are those kind of deliverables we might need to figure out, get a plan for?
Well, what do you guys, and I'm not gonna throw this back at you, but I just want to ask, so I have an idea what you think. What do you feel are those deliverables, or things you should start thinking about?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds to me like the primary thing is making sure that, everybody is feeling comfortable about the financials. That seems to me like the only real serious concern in the room right now. That's at least from my perspective, that's all I'm thinking about, in terms of, homework.
Yeah, I mean, I
Well,
guess
now,
I kind of started. I started to say about like, I mean, I guess some sort of a schedule or like, I don't know, like, I get Tom over here from Lawrence Park was mentioning about staffing needs. So a staffing picture, a fully developed staffing picture would be kind of a deliverable, I would think. Facilities are, I mean, we want to figure out what does the facilities plan. So we kind of already have a general idea we can agree to about where the headquarters and substation is, but then also what is needed to make this facility ready? Is there any cost to that? So a facilities plan would be another kind of deliverable. So scheduling, facilities plan, financial, I think administrative arrangement. I mean, talking about those administrative, like a plan for, payroll or insurance or clerical, like kind of starting to build out, like what would that staffing need be for administrative?
that's a very, very good point. And are you guys going to do a service sharing plan internally so that who does your payroll right now, Marcus? Do you do that internally or do you send that to a subcontractor?
Internally.
Spencer?
Piece of payroll.
Well, we do.
Yeah,
I guess
you
I guess I should say we
subcontract
have
your payroll.
a vendor. All right, I should say, okay, clear.
What?
We have a vendor ECCA locally, but then we have someone in our office who inputs the hours and then has to do how much money do we move from where, put it into our budget. So I guess the accounting side of our payroll is done in-house, but we have an external processor who does the tax calculations and
Cuts the checks.
cuts the checks,
Mhm.
that kind of thing.
Yeah, and we have a similar arrangement with a different vendor right now, but we are actually moving to the same vendor pretty shortly.
Yeah. So what's it's looking like this, since they're moving to the same vendor, we will have two municipalities, each with our own public works department and whatnot, who will be having our
Mhm.
payroll system. And then instead of recreating the wheel there and having a completely different or now a third group that's doing payroll at this regional level, I think it would make sense to do a service sharing agreement.
Yeah.
Where it would be kicked back to one municipality to do the payroll and maybe the other municipality. In terms of insurance, I would say instead of us having one insurance,
Well,
Like-
you'd want to bid out the whole thing.
I want to bid out,
Yeah.
everybody really. And
Right.
if we could even work, use this as an opportunity to, right now we have one insurance that applies to our non-uniform plus uniform and they have the same arrangement. Instead of now saying, all right, we're going to peel away a certain amount of people and put it into a different bucket. Now they're going to go get their own insurance. I mean, I think service sharing arrangement there would probably be best.
Yeah, you
as
should
well.
pick up some economy of scale there too.
Mhm.
Could I
And you
speak
guys,
real quick?
I'm going to tell you right now, you're making perfect sense because what's happening here is you're also getting ready for your audit by just having everybody on the same sheet of music. Because I'm sure every year you get that little note in your audit that always made me upset. It was the one that said that you don't have a certified financial person on staff, therefore we have that fine. It's not necessarily a finding; it's just something that they have to make a note of. Always kind of gored my ox, but the fact of the matter is, you guys are moving away from that, so good.
Yep. I think the mayor has a
And I'm going to
question.
tell you something else. I never met your chiefs at any of the conferences or anything, but I see them sitting together there, and they're not sitting at opposite ends of the table, so that's always a good starting point. So that's good.
And you notice that the mayor's sitting across from him, so it's not too bad either. But I have real quick on the scheduling part. Basically, as far as the scheduling, I think that could be resolved real easy. I mean, once you set the budget and you give the money to whoever's going to be the chief, I mean, basically that's the way we do it. The chief sets the schedule. You say you got 16 officers, this is your budget. They set the schedule, so basically the community doesn't even have to know what the schedule is going to be. So as long as the community is covered, the commission, whoever you set as a commission, feels that schedule is good, then that problem is going to be resolved. I mean, the commission is going to tell them, hey, you need to put more officers in this area, or you might need to put more, and it's gonna be up to the chief to do that. But they have to follow that budget, that whatever that budget that's been to them, and whatever officers they have. So I don't think as far as the schedule and all that other stuff, that's not gonna be an issue because it's gonna be up to the chief or whoever's in charge of that department. But I think the bottom line is gonna be whatever the budget is and whether we can afford it. And like I say, it's not gonna be really that difficult. It's just gonna be whether we can afford it. That's just my opinion, so.
Yeah,
You know,
you're absolutely correct. And those decisions as far as schedules, that should be in the hands of the chief at any given time. As an operational or administrative issue, that's their responsibility with knowledge of the governing body, how that looks. But you're absolutely correct. And the one thing I would say that the scheduling should always be based upon resource allocation and demand of services. When you need the people working, you don't necessarily need to have 12 guys working on Sunday morning between 10 a.m. and noon because everybody's either in church or asleep, and it's not a good allocation of resources. I'm just using that as an example. It's usually a good training day, or if you're going to do something like that. But at any rate, that's the kind of stuff that you look at later on downstream. Right now, you guys are starting to focus on the right things. I'm very pleased with the way this has turned out. So my next question is, does anybody see any big obstacles here that we need to talk about? What's the elephant or the gorilla hiding in the corner of the room? Little Jane Goodall humor there with the gorilla in the corner of the room for any of you guys to get that.
I think the only one budget.
She just died.
Sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay, that's okay. Sounds like too soon.
I personally think the only thing is the budget. I don't know if you can hear me, I have to yell.
I think you're,
I
Okay,
think the only thing is budget. Can you hear me?
gotcha.
gotcha.
Okay,
Oh, he did hear it.
I don't wanna yell.
I guess my concern, I can hear what you're all saying about the budget. I mean, I certainly agree. I think everything at the end of the day in municipalities comes down to the dollars and cents. My one concern is it's kind of like what came first, the chicken or the egg? Because, I don't want it to be put on Spencer and I that over the next 6 months, we put together a budget and then we'll reconvene. And then but where do we start with a budget? How do we start to, I guess.
Right, like,
Yeah, what-
that is a question I have too, is like, I guess what I'm saying, to piggyback on what you're saying, like, are we building this hypothetical budget? 16, 2 SROs, 1 K9, 2 facilities, like, and everybody's cool with that? Like, cause if somebody does have an issue with any of that, that is what I would like to hear, like, as soon as possible, because,
Yeah.
You'd just be wasting your time.
right, we don't wanna waste our time.
Yeah.
And,
Because when we're talking in terms of how is payroll gonna be handled, well, that's gonna impact the budget.
right.
Do you need somebody at the department who's gonna do payroll, or is this something that's gonna be contracted
And
back
is-
to the municipalities and
Is there
what
gonna
is
be an
a?
admin staff? Like, you guys have an admin staff right now, we don't have one, right?
Yeah.
So like, so,
We could start putting together a budget, I guess, according to the plan that was put together, but some of it the plan didn't really. I think the plan kind of had like a catch-all,
it had a lot of.
administrative, you'll
Right, and
probably
it
have
had a lot
that.
of hypotheticals too, like,
isn't this pretty much the budget? I mean, if you
It's-
go by this, it's pretty well.
it's close, but I think the issue we're having, like we're talking about right now, is like when we get drilled down into specifics, because like if we go to get a quote for something just to see what it would hypothetically cost, that's where, like, are we gonna use the same payroll provider? Are we gonna use the same, we would have to think about all of the small things too. Because, that study captured a lot of the big ideas, but it didn't capture the granular stuff that costs a lot of money.
And I think under the insurance line item, that budget might be the more complete one, but when it showed like the cost per officer, it said, here's the cost of insurance, and it was just like
There- it-
25,000.
A generic
Insurance isn't
number.
included. It doesn't give a number for insurance.
Well,
Right.
That's why I said you have to come up with that number.
Right, and that's, so we, it's not that we have no resources to work off of, it's just that it's it's just gonna, it's gonna take some time and I just want to make sure that there isn't, like, nobody's sitting here thinking to themselves like, I want 20 officers, because if we are, we should talk about that now. You know what I mean?
Right,
Like, that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, what's the
Well, they said they
parameters?
were good with
Yeah.
16. but
And
sure.
what's the parameters of the budget, I guess, and like, I wanna, as I said, it's kind of like the chicken and the egg. We kind of have to walk and chew gum at the same time a little bit, and certainly Spencer and I will be more than walking, we'll be trying to sprint. But we're gonna have to have the group be thinking on, okay, let's take this one chunk and think about that. Let's take this one chunk and think about that. And the budget will not be, Spencer and I could get it to 90%. But we're not gonna have 100% clarity on this budget, not probably ever, but we're not, certainly not gonna be able to fill in those, key gaps until we actually know how are we gonna do payroll? How are we gonna do insurance? In terms of vehicle insurance, I mean, I guess we can use our current rates,
Sure.
but can we?
But we
use
have two
that?
different insurance providers. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like, but I was, and that's my biggest thing is like, is I just want to make sure there's nobody on this committee that's thinking like, well, because that study presented other hypotheticals, like what if we had 13 officers? What if we had 14 officers, right? Like, I just want to make sure we're all on the same general page before
I
I
think that's
start.
that's a good point right there, and I think that's one of the things that we need to come up with. Does anybody feel that we're gonna be cutting officers?
Right,
And
and
that
like,
should be put on the table right now.
right, and like
Let's
from,
get that out right now before
from-
January 27th. That's one of the things.
I agree. I agree. I mean,
Yeah.
so, I mean. and
Okay,
that's-
let me just put it to you this way. I don't deal in hypotheticals. I deal in real numbers. We're gonna do a nose count. How many cops you got now is how many cops you're gonna have when we do the study. Because the bottom line here is, that's the calculation. That's,
Okay, sounds like we're good. I mean, I just want to make sure we're on that page before Marcus and I start doing.
One thing I would like, I'm hearing over here, that's gotta change. Sorry, gentlemen. You're not thinking Wesleyville Lawrence Park anymore. Payroll is being done by the regional police.
Right,
The insurance is under the regional police. And all, we can't think, well, let's take a look at one or the other. You go out there and you have clout now going for the insurance. Like, I think the mayor said it,
right.
the
Well,
gentleman there said it.
That's what we're.
Right.
That's
And I
what we're
think
saying.
that the
Yeah.
issue that I would, or the thing that we need to figure is, we currently have, 7 officers plus when we add in our public works, let's say we have a total of, 14 people on our insurance. Okay, are we peeling away 7 from Wesleyville?
Right.
And then we're gonna have 7 of our folks going towards the regional department. Now the regional department has 16 people in their insurance bucket. But then Lawrence Park alone and Wesleyville alone has our own bucket, and then we would have 3 different buckets for insurance.
Right,
Our point is, that doesn't make sense.
Right.
We would have to think, can we regionalize all of it?
Yeah, I don't know if we can do that.
The
And that's-
part.
And that's something
why
we need
not.
to like look into more, and talk about more,
Right.
And I'm not thinking about Wesleyville payroll versus Lawrence Park payroll.
right. We're just
But it's
thinking,
just
what
thinking, are
does
we
it
gonna
look like?
peel away
Right. 'cause
7 people from our payroll? and
That's what I
have it-
mean. Like, it doesn't make sense for us to take all of our part-timers who are using also the same payroll provider and your part-timer public works guys that are using the same payroll provider. Are we gonna hire this payroll provider for a third thing, right? Or are we gonna do a local service agreement where we're all doing it at once, right?
Yeah.
okay, that's a very good point, a very good solution. And there's a regional police department, 45 officers in Allegheny County is doing exactly that. They're using one of their participating municipalities to provide that service on a service sharing agreement. It's clean, it's cheaper, you get economy of scale. The only thing I would start to say to you guys is don't try to play that with your workers' comp. It's not going to work. The police departments typically have a higher experience rate. Therefore, you're going to want to try to reset them at 0 and hope like hell that they stay there.
Yeah, and I think I remember talking to our insurance person did say that in terms of workers' comp.
Yeah.
They said workers' comp is the one thing. I think some of this comes down to, we will have 3 different EIN numbers.
Yeah.
Different tax numbers. So, I think workers' comp is the one type of insurance you really can't intermingle those EINs versus like, I think the overall,
Like
health insurance, we probably could bundle. So those are the things we gotta look at. And it's not as
Are
simple as
you
just
are you
saying.
part of a benefits trust like divot or SMT or PIMIC or any of those things?
I don't even know what that is.
Yeah, I've never heard those words in my life.
Okay.
I'll be honest with you.
It's a coalition of municipalities that have gone together to have insurance like Benecon.
I like the idea of a
That sounds like a
coalition.
great idea.
Yeah, I like the idea of
Okay.
a coalition of municipalities.
Since I was on their executive board, I'll get you a copy of the enrollment agreement. We had a reduction in healthcare costs because they look at you collectively and you get economy of scale. So you don't have any municipal agreements up there where everybody binds together and gets like a group rate?
Not for insurance.
Nope.
Huh.
They've talked about it in Erie County, and I think I've heard of the whole like benefits trust thing, but ECOG talked about it in a
Yeah.
presentation, and that was the furthest it has gone.
Yep.
Are any
Yeah.
other
I'd like to say
municipalities up there? Any other municipalities up there in the same boat?
Probably all of them
I
theoretically.
would think all of them, yeah, although we're probably the closest and most symmetrical, so it would probably be the easiest to collaborate.
Sorry, we had somebody in the room with a question.
It's not a question, it's a comment, and you know, as Mayor Johnson was saying, this is all about the money. And one of the things you're really gonna have to look at is, obviously, with employees, you're looking at annually, you know, looking at a pay increase, cost of everything goes up, insurance, that, plus wages go up. But the problem with this police department thing is, and as we've seen here and in most places I've seen, the cost of police officers is going up, as we talked about. You know, you mentioned that they're in short supply. You know, and obviously it takes more money to get people. So that's another thing that you need to think about when you're looking at a budget. You know, we're gonna be able to save money, but we have to think about how much more we may have to pay scale may have to raise a little bit to get police officers in the future. Just a thought.
You know, you guys must have been sitting around reading a police manual or something here because you're asking all these great questions, okay? And what you're talking about there is hiring, retention, and selection. And those costs are definitely high for police departments, especially because of the training costs. It's not like you take an officer right out of college or right out of the police academy, put him in a police car and pat him on the head and say, go out and have a great day, be safe, and see you at the end of the shift. There's a lot of training costs. There's a lot of time. There's a lot of other things, equipment and all these things. So typically, to replace an officer, it is about twice the annual salary of the officer that's departed until they're fully operational and ready to go. And you nailed it. There's ways you can look at savings that are. There's things you do to create savings across time, but as an actual reduction immediately, you're going to see probably a little bump. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, but over time, that's going to be a smooth line. It's not going to be an up and down because of all these little things that you're talking about. So you really nailed it with that question. Okay, so what I'm going to ask you guys is talk for a few minutes amongst yourselves after the meeting here, and probably the next few steps that we're going to take here are going to be baby steps. I'm going to talk to Spencer and I'm going to talk to Marcus and get this budget piece hammered out. I'm going to talk to your two chiefs, get all the numbers firmed up there. And I'm going to ask a few questions about anticipated replacement costs and things like that for any equipment that might be attriting out, and the same thing with officers. So I have an idea how many officers are planning to retire, things like that. So those are the things that we can nail down to get all those little questions that you guys had about money pretty much solidified. And in addition to that, I'm going to, if it's okay with you guys, talk to Spencer and Marcus about all the little things that we should look for in a police budget, especially a regional police budget, things that are not necessarily within the municipal budget. So start thinking about, are the police going to be paying for their own electricity? You're going to put a meter on their building portion? The same with air conditioning, or is there just going to be, how's that going to look? How do you guys intend to approach that? Those are called hidden costs. Same thing with janitorial things.
Yeah, that was gonna be my one question about is Lawrence Park charging a a rent on the facility, you know, those are
Right.
the type of
And,
things you gotta think about.
and then if you are, you're charging it to this regional department,
Yeah.
right? So it's a, yeah.
So I mean, that has to be built into the regional department's budget, the rent for the facility, if Lawrence Park chooses to rent it. So we'd almost have to come up with a lease on this, for the station, a lease between the regional department and Lawrence Park to
Right.
figure, you know.
Yeah, we'll also parse this part into it too when you start to think about that. If the RPD is paying rent there, is it strictly a lease agreement, or is it going to be a rent to own, or is it going to be acquiring equity? All of those things that you want to really have hashed out in that agreement in advance. So those are the little things. And I'm not brilliant. Those are just the kind of things that you run across. So you guys are on the right track. Okay, any
We wanna
questions
skip-
before we wrap it up?
One thing you do have on the agenda here is about future meetings, frequency, best times, things like that. I mean, I think, did we do, the other one was on a Thursday too, right?
Yeah.
So a Thursday evening at 5:30, I think generally has worked for people. That said, in terms of frequency, I mean, there's a lot of work that Spencer and I need to do. So probably not a monthly meeting, maybe let's meet one more time before the end of the year, if that's agreeable for everybody, one more time before the end of the year, maybe like towards the end of November, right at the beginning of December. I understand a lot of people, a lot of things in government kind of slows down a lot in December, but if we can do one meeting right at the beginning of December before the holidays, I think that might be nice. So,
And one other thing I just want to throw out there before we close, and Spencer or Marcus, you just made me think of it. In my regional police intergovernmental cooperation agreement, we had a requirement that we had to have our budget submitted to the municipalities no later than the first week in August. And the reason for that is we have to allow you as municipalities time to have your budget adopted and to go into that budgetary process. And I see you guys seem to be pretty cooperative on a lot of issues up there, so that's probably a good thing, because what I would also suggest is strong communication in meetings with the police chief and his executive staff to go over these budgetary things and to look at those P&L reports on a very, very frequent basis so you can keep ahead of the budget curve and things. Because no matter how you cut it, a regional police department has to be run like a business in order to be successful. And we owe that to the community just as good stewards of their money. So, anything else?
do we want to put a date on the next meeting just to be safe? So if we're agreeable to, let's say we did it this like the first week of October, obviously. So the first Thursday of December would be the 4th of December. If it's agreeable to everybody, how's the 4th of December at 5:30?
Or be at your place?
It'll be in Wesleyville.
I guess none of you guys hunt deer, huh?
Oh, is that the first day of the year?
No, it's the first week.
First week?
Yeah.
Oh, is that bad for you? Are you a hunting guy?
It's dark by 5:30.
I don't know. I was up
It's
in Erie
dark.
County. There was deer running everywhere. I might be going up there to hunt, so maybe we'll just do an in-person deal. Anyway.
Do we have an alternative
Your car.
No,
time?
hey,
Do we
I'm
want to
just
do it a
busting
week
your
earlier
chops.
than that? A week
I
after?
think we'll be okay.
Because then you're
A
getting
week
too
after.
close to
Okay.
Thanksgiving.
So, all right, how about,
Thanksgiving night?
so let's do December 11th at 5:30 in Wesleyville.
12/11.
December 11th,
December
Oh,
11th.
the next Thursday.
the
Okay.
following Thursday, December 11th, 5:30 in Wesleyville.
Cool.
All right.
Okay, I gotta roll, so me too.
All right, see ya.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Hey,
I'm
thanks,
gonna
guys.
stop
Listen,
recording.
this has been a pleasure. You have my number. If you
All
need
right.
something, call.
Yes.
Appreciate your
All
time.
right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey, could you stay on the line?